What's going on, guys, and welcome back to yet another edition of the Meta Deck Report, a new series in which I rate the best, top, most sweaty decks that you can use in Marvel Snap on the ladder. Now, we saw a huge patch a couple weeks back that attempted to bring some balance to the meta.
The attempt on my life has left me scarred.
And today we're going to see just how much that really had an impact. Now, reminder, guys, this is the Meta Deck Report, so you're going to see a lot of pool 4 and 5 cards, and it's going to assume you have a pool 3 complete collection. However, if that's not you, and there's a good chance it's not, tomorrow we're going to have a pool 3 only deck tier list, giving you plenty of competitive options to use on the ladder as well. So let's go ahead and kick off this list with the tier 1 decks, the most consistent top performers well above the rest. And of course, Shuri is going to kick off this list, and to be honest, guys, she's kind of in a league of her own. We're going to put her in tier 1, but she's the top of the list at a consistent well above 60% win rate in Marvel Snap. They give it the old college try to nerf her by going and adjusting Red Skull, but as you guys can see, she's still a top performing deck. If you want the easiest, most kind of thoughtless way to get to Infinite, right now, Shuri is the answer. Although a lot of people have geared their deck into countering Shuri, she is still just a force to be reckoned with in an incredible deck in Marvel Snap. Now, a new addition to the Meta Deck Report are early indicators for some of these decks, and Shuri, one of the best things she has going for her is, well, there's not really any indicators that are massively screaming that they are using a Shuri deck until it's pretty much too late. Although Zero, Lizard, and Armor are the cards that you should look for in the early turns, and then, of course, Shuri on turn 4. Now, next up for Tier 1, we have Rocks and Hawks. The Darkhawk decks have finally come to light. I'm finally seeing content creators talk about it, players using it on their way to Infinite, and it's one of the best decks to do so. You've got Mystique, Darkhawk, and Devil Dinosaur with ongoing synergy, and Moon Girl to create even more copies of the Hawk or Devil. We have Shang-Chi for counters, Quinjet to discount Agent Coulson, and Agent Coulson's cards give us plenty of surprise against our opponents. This is currently my favorite deck to play in Marvel Snap. I play it all the time on the ladder. I've used it in tournaments, just very consistent play, with the only downside being it's somewhat predictable for your opponent, but it doesn't really matter because of the power you can pump out. But moving right along, we go to Thanos, guys, and he is still tier 1 even after leaving him scarred after the nerf. We do have some adjustments to the old Thanos deck, along with a brand new style of Thanos play that I think we'll see a lot in the April ladder. Now, this is pretty much the old build that you are used to by now, outside of Armor, replacing Quinjet after the nerf that heavily got rid of the stone abuse. We did see some adjustment to the Space Stone as well, so you won't get as easy of wins with Thanos, but still a very consistent deck with its pure power output. But as for the new build of Thanos, we have Infinite Death. Now, I started to build something like this when the Null decks were on the rise, and it's great to see a combination of both Destroy, Lockjaw, and Thanos all come together. You think Killmonger is going to hurt your chances of winning, but it actually helps you plenty because of how many one-cost cards are in the current meta to counter your opponent, while at the same time clearing up board space on your side and lowering Death's cost. Now, guys, I freaking hate Leech. I try not to put him in any decks. I don't want to make him more popular than he already is, but he is obviously going to be in the deck as a mainstay. However, I encourage you, if you happen to have Kitty Pryde, she is an awesome, excellent addition to the deck. Now, we have loads of decks left, but let's go ahead and rip off the Band-Aid and get rid of the big bads. And we go to Galactus, another tier 1 deck with several different styles of play. Now, I will say Galactus does need Null to be a true tier 1 deck, and with the addition of Nimrod and Negasonic, the deck has gotten even better. Now, Cloak Galactus is your standard Galactus build, but you also have now a turn 6 Galactus with Nimrod, sporting a really good both cube and win rate. But also we have a Negasonic Galactus that does the job just as well. All three of these decks highly consistent, a deck that truly pays off if you learn the mechanics and how to stay under the radar. Now, Galactus does have the disadvantage of having the easiest identifiers if the opponent is playing the deck with Yondu, Ramp cards, and even Adam Warlock. If you see these in the early turns, just prep yourself for Galactus. And we do have a new appearance in the tier 1 decks, and that is going to be the Patriot 3. It is a Bass deck combined with Valkyrie Control with Patriot. The real secret here is going to be Bass, and it's finally been discovered by the public in Marvel Snap. You can use it with Mysterio to have a mini Doctor Doom and have 3 cards with 3 in 1 play for 2 costs. That's a mouthful. We have Iron Man and Mystique getting the advantage. Hood going from -2 all the way to 3. Squirrel, Wasp as a free play. There's so much going for the deck, and I encourage you to give it a shot. Now, finishing off tier 1, we have Dark Sera Control, Sera Hawk Control, whatever you want to call it. It is a Miracle-style turn 6 explosive deck. And by far on Twitter and in my comments, this is one of the ones that take the most people to infinite. You have a deck that can counter and control the majority of the decks out there with several different variations and versions. Now, Darkhawk is going to be somewhat of a necessity for the deck with the value that he brings. And you can also bring Enchantress if you don't want to rock the newly nerfed Arrow, although I still think Arrow works in the deck with the Sera discount. This is truly a deck that can be great in an easy climb and teach you a lot about Marvel Snap and how to counter decks. And it does run some similar cards to the other decks out there, but look out for Nova, Sentinel, and Zabu as some key indicators that they are playing this deck. Or even Scarlet Witch is a good indicator that you might see Sera Hawk control. You can find a full guide on this up in the top right-hand corner above or in the description below. Now we're going to move on to what I want to call tier 1.5. So almost there, not quite tier 2 or tier 1. And we've got Wave 5. Now, commonly this is called Doom Wave, but really, guys, it's putting good cards together with Wave and playing her on turn 5 alongside She-Hulk for 1 cost and a 5 cost card on the same turn. This is going to allow Arrow to be utilized the exact same way, as your opponent can only play 1 card, or you can pair her up with Devil Dinosaur, Iron Man. There are several versions of the deck, but the 2 versions that we'll show here are the more popular versions of the deck with the highest win rates on the ladder so far. Both very good, very cheap to build, not a lot of investment as far as pool 3 cards go, and definitely something that if you learn and you know how to identify other decks, you should be able to net a good amount of wins. Now, continuing on with tier 1.5, we do have the Meta Buster, the good cards deck, the one that I personally took up the majority of the way to infinite this season, and it hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it probably got a little bit better with the recent nerfs and buffs. It's not the most exciting deck to play by any means, but you have so much at your disposal. You have Zero and Lizard, Zero and Red Skull, Shang-Chi to counter, Doctor Doom to spread wide, Arrow and She-Hulk can wave together. Very strong deck that, again, if you're just great at reading decks and you know how to play around locations and other opponents' cards, this will be the deck that you'll want to play. This is yet another deck that I have a complete in-depth guide about how to play it turn by turn, the exact cards and replacements. If you want to find that, you can check in the top right-hand corner. Now, believe it or not, guys, Zoo the sequel, Dracula Dump, whatever you want to call it, is such a good deck, even with loads of 1-cost cards. Essentially, guys, obviously, you have Killmonger out there, but with Armor and Cosmo to stop it. Big play cards with Dracula, Red Skull, and Infinite, and having Khazar to boost everything up, along with plenty of replaceable options. Zoo the sequel is surprisingly just very smooth. I know Snapster loves this deck. Just a great deck overall to play, and if you haven't given it a test drive, go ahead and take it out and see how well and consistent the deck truly is. Now, to end the tier 1.5 decks, we have Bounce Disrupt that I fully believe will be an easy tier 1 deck next season with the new season pass. And this deck was created by Jeff Hooglin, the first that I saw of it. Essentially, you're combining just a huge Disrupt package with Hood, Iceman, and Korg. The best part is you can bounce back Korg and Black Widow to build up, you guessed it, your Darkhawk. And then you also have Hood to get multiple demons. But the biggest thing, guys, this is a big brain deck deceptively because you give and take priority depending on the match. Now, if you want your opponent to have priority, you can go ahead and Beast and Falcon your strong cards back. Or if you want it, you can play your Swarms of Demons to go ahead and claim it back. So those are the tier 1 decks, guys. I want to remind you, paper thin margins here, right? Some tier 1s could slip down, some tier 2s could go up depending on the player and the circumstances. All these, though, are going to be great competitive options. Let's go to tier 2. Now, to kick off this tier, guys, we're going to start with probably one of the more slept-on decks for whatever reason. After MODOK season, he came, he went, he died. Nobody played discard again. But, guys, this deck has an extremely high win rate, up there rivaling almost, not all the way, but Shuri at times. Your opponent has to keep up with a lot of different value plays, with Morbius being a 2-cost that scales very nicely. We don't see Enchantress or Rogue in the current meta, which is helping him a lot. Wolverine and Calling Wing, or Calling Wing and Swarm, is insane amounts of value. We have Dracula to hold his own lane, and then MODOK is a great 5-cost card. He puts plenty of power on the board, as well as giving you a good amount of momentum going into turn 6. Now, my friends, enter Sandman. He has been flying under the radar since his buff, but he is still a very good card and one of the most accessible decks going into Pool 3. You have so many different 5 and 6 cost cards that you can play in a ramp deck, and this one specifically is about setting up early turns with high power, good tempo plays, and then when you play Sandman down and the opponent can only play 1 card, you have Vision to move around, Doom and Odin, the most broken combo in a Sandman deck, and Magneto to move their cards around as well. You can plug in cards that play multiple cards like Shauna and Squirrel Girl. You can do Claw, you can have Leech, Devil Dinosaur, Captain Marvel. The deck has a lot going for it, and again, if you just want a deck that you don't have a lot of big, crazy cards, the big bads, this one can get you far. Now, for another deck that I think could make its way up back to Tier 1, we have Sera Surfer, a very solid deck for a long time, but after the Surfer nerf, not a lot of people played it. Now that Baero has been handled and you don't have to have her in every single deck, I think it is coming back in a major way and something that I've been playing a lot of. We have the 3 cost cards and Storm making her comeback. Great control to take care of Shuri decks. And then if you want to go ahead and play more of a control style feel, and you do have access to one of the more newer cards in Marvel Snap of Negasonic, you can play a Daredevil Professor X blend. Daredevil and Negasonic is one of the best combos in Snap right now to just counter almost anything played on turn 5 or set up to play on turn 6. Very solid deck with great power, good build-up, and a decent curve. Next up, we'll be quick because we've talked a lot about Sera decks, but Sera Toxic is a blend of a Sera control deck. It's a little bit less reliable with its win rate in the general public, but still very good to take on a lot of what you might find out there. I think Luke Cage and Hazmat might be one of the most slept on cards right now in Marvel Snap. A lot of potential between those two, and this deck can get you far so long as you get the right card draw. Now, guys, like it or not, but Patriot is always going to be reliable. Just a tried and true deck that you can fall back on. It happens to be great against bots. It's solid against players as well, and just is very easy to pilot. Now, I've gotten a lot of great comments back and plenty of players hitting Infinite with my surprise Ultron deck as well that I'll throw in here. The whole deck is going to kind of be a deck in disguise, trying to hide what you're trying to do. Never playing Patriot out in the open and playing everything under Invisible Woman. You'd be surprised how many cubes you can win by throwing an Ultron on the last turn or Doctor Doom depending on how the battle plays out. There are 3 different versions of the decks depending on your collection, and for a full breakdown, you can go ahead and check in the top right-hand corner. Now, to finish off this meta deck report, we're going to rapid fire through the rest of the decks that we have left, starting with Jane Jaw. If you enjoy RNG, if you like Lockjaw, if you want the chance to play M'Baku, you can go ahead and give Jane Jaw a try. Pretty good deck. Does have a lot of RNG, and that's not my style of play, and I don't recommend taking this maybe all the way to Infinite, but definitely it's a good deck to go ahead, kick back, and get some wins and climb a nice steady pace. Pretty solid overall. Now, the next deck is Baero, the Death Bay, and obviously we talked about Wave on turn 5, and this deck is better than ever because, well, this was the OG deck of Wave on turn 5, so definitely still tried and true if you want to combine Arrow and She-Hulk. And finally, to wrap up the meta deck report, we have She-Not, or as I like to call it, the post-credit scene. You have Moon Girl to copy multiple demons and multiple She-Hulks to play them all on the last turn of the game by skipping turn 6. If you have magic, or if you don't have magic, you can just skip turn 5 and have an explosive turn 6. Love the decks with an explosive finish, and this is one of the best at it. If you want to try something different, you can get rid of Quinjet, or you can have Agent Coulson to get multiple things that work with the Jet. Guys, I do also want to just note that Cerebro 2, Cerebro 3 are on their way back, but not quite there as far as consistency goes. Just the win rate for the general public is sometimes even below 50%, so they did not make this list, but you can play the decks nonetheless. All right, guys, there we have it. Not a lot of change compared to last month, especially after that balance patch, but I do foresee April being a huge month of change for Bounce, Miracle, the new season pass card. If you guys don't want to miss out on any of the videos that we have to come, and there's a lot of big ones coming out, guys, go ahead and subscribe down below. Now, guys, I wanted to take a sec just to say thank you. As someone that just started this channel up, I had no idea that it would blow up to where it is today. 75,000 subs is crazy, and it's just not a number to me, and I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. Y'all support for me as a creator. So again, just want to say thank you guys for being here, creating a great community around Marvel Snap. Good luck climbing the ladder. Thank you guys for coming by yet again. Until the next one, happy snapping.